Yesterday was an interesting game that we need to discuss because Andrew Heaney wasn't good.
No.
And that happens, right? You're going to have, as long as you're a healthy starting pitcher, you're going to have 30 starts. And Derek Holland broke it down the other day.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean when you don't feel good. I want to make this clear. It doesn't mean when you don't feel good or you have a little bit of soreness or dead arm or you just don't feel right. It doesn't mean you have a bad game. Sometimes those are your best games. Why? Because you're so mentally locked in about the crap that you're bringing to the table that your mental part of really throwing great sequences and making sure the ball gets where it needs to go. Sometimes with your crappiest stuff, you have your best games.
And I think you saw, I kind of felt like, I don't know if y'all felt this way. I felt like we might have seen all three of those phases literally play out in the same start. Because after 2 innings, he had already struck out 3 people and given up 1 hit. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. And then sometimes just the other way, when you feel great and you feel like the ball is jumping out of your hand and you are just dotting the I on everything you throw, you go out there and sometimes you mentally lapse and you don't concentrate as much. And all of a sudden you're not dotting the I's and crossing the T's. You're just getting smoked and you're like, what happened? And you realize some of my best stuff that I had got hit very hard because I mentally wasn't locked in the way I needed to get locked in there because I trusted how great my stuff was and how great I felt going into the game. Now, for the most part, when you feel great, usually you will pitch good. When you feel bad, usually you will pitch bad, but you'll surprise yourself sometimes in a negative way and a positive way. And then they're going to have 10 starts where you feel kind of pretty average. And those days that you're average can kind of make or break your season. So Heaney had a bad game. It happens. He didn't have his stuff yesterday. And you thought, well, the Rangers are going to lose. And then the Rangers had a freaking unbelievable 5th inning.
Can we play cut 8? Because cut 8 is the moment that, Mike, I thought we were going to win this game. Even if it was just a 1-run lead, I thought we were going to win for sure.
.com. The 1-1 hit high and deep to left. Josh Young, home run number 2 today. You bet! The American League Rookie of the Month for the month of April has gone yard twice. This 2-run blast puts Texas out in front 7-6.
Not kidding, Mike. I thought we were going to win.
I did too. When they came back and made it 7-6, because you know what? That Cincinnati series felt a little bit in the rearview mirror.
Yep.
Right? You're kind of like, nah, you know what? You just took 3 of 4 against the Yankees. The only game you lost against the Yankees was Garrett Cole. Well, everybody's lost against Garrett Cole. Like, he doesn't lose this year. That's how good he is. So you just felt like, hey, the Cincinnati thing feels like we're overcoming that. Now, the other day I mentioned when Will Smith gave up the fly ball to Evan Longoria at the warning track, I was scared to death when he hit that ball. It was gone, and we had just blown a 1-run lead in the 9th inning, but it didn't. It was a fly ball out, and Will Smith did a great job. Yesterday, though, the main story, I was watching Bally Sports in the post-game show with Michelle. I think I would say her last name right. I think it's McMahon, just like Jim McMahon, but I might be saying her last name right. But she's gone. What is it?
Or Vince McMahon.
Yeah, or Vince McMahon. But she's gone from Dallas Stars because the Stars are done on Bally's. It's all national games now. So if you're flipping for the Stars tonight, make sure, don't go to, for me, it's channel 676. They're not going to be on there anymore. Just like basketball, after the first round, it goes all national. But she was on there with Steve Buechele, and they were talking about Jose LeClerc as he could not throw the ball where he wanted. He threw 14 pitches and threw 4 strikes.
You know what I thought about when I was watching him is because you talked about how, was it last month, 2 months ago, that he went down to College Station.
Yeah.
I was in my head after he walked the first person. I was like chanting, ball 5, ball 5, ball 6. Ball, and then obviously he walked the next person.
It went to ball 8.
Yep.
I believe the next pitch, I don't know if it was first pitch.
It was fouled off. Yeah.
Okay, because I was a little bit surprised that they swung.
Yeah.
To be honest. I was like, I don't think you have to swing. And he has to face the hitter, right? The rule is you have to face 3 hitters. So I was like, he's going to walk 3 guys here and then get taken out of the game. But he gave up a sacrifice fly. And because of that, I understand Boach was like, man, I'm going to stick with them a hair longer. And then he gave up a hit, and then the blow up happened. And so with Jose LeClerc.
And Saboris wasn't good either.
He wasn't good in that inning.
Yeah.
He did a good job. He did a good job to close out the fifth.
Right. Yeah.
And then if I have my inning right, he did a good job in the sixth. But his seventh inning didn't start off well. And it was like, oh no, then LeClerc comes in. And here's the deal with when you have a bad game or a relief pitcher or a starting pitcher, there's kind of body language that you're trying to read. Anger's easy to read, right? You see like Chris Sale, he'll get really mad and you can see him smash things like, okay, so there's anger. That's one reaction to not pitching well. There can be, which is the scary one, indifference, where it doesn't seem like the person cares anymore if they're doing good or bad. I don't think that's Jose LeClerc at all. He doesn't show anger in bad outings. He doesn't show indifference. What I'm trying to read of his body language, is he showing that he doesn't believe in himself?
Okay.
Is he showing sadness? Is he like, this is what Bochy and this is what Chris Young right now are trying to figure out, because he's not throwing the ball slow. And what I mean by that is it's not now 91, 92. He's throwing the ball pretty consistently at 95, and that's pretty much what his fastball's been for most of his career. It used to maybe be a hair harder, but I mean, he's throwing the ball hard enough. His breaking ball feels like, to me, it has enough break. He just can't throw it for a strike. And so the hitter's just like, well, if you can't throw your slider for a strike, I'm not going to swing at it. And that's just eliminating pitches. So now you're just sitting fastball for the most part, or Slombio, which is not a hard pitch to hit. At least the hitters are telling you that's not a difficult pitch for me to read, see, and when you throw it for a strike, hit the ball pretty hard. So at this point with the Rangers, they're trying to figure out mentally where LeClerc is at. And you can ask him questions. You have to believe his answers. That's always the tough part, because sometimes we say, I'm fine, right? To talking doctor, to obviously sports psychologist, you can say, I'm fine, I'm good. Like, don't worry about me. But you can tell by the actions that are happening and then your immediate reaction of your body language that things aren't fine or good or okay, or you're going to get out of this next time.
How much could you tell, like whether it was a teammate or the front office or whoever, when they told you something when you were playing, how much they really believed it versus you're just giving me a pep talk or whatever?
I think that's a great question. First of all, I think that's a great question for a licensed psychologist.
As opposed to you.
Or a manager has to deal with people all the time, or a head coach. And so Bochy has a good understanding of this, yet he wasn't trained the way that maybe.
Sure.
He's just going off of a lot of time doing this, and he's great at it. I'm not saying you can't be unless you went to school for this, but I think sometimes as non-professionals, we can come in with a I don't know if predisposed is the right, but we already feel that you can't do it by the way that we saw your reaction. So now how much of a bias do I have when you tell me, no, I'm good, I'm feeling good? I'm like, no, you're not. I can tell you're not. Now how much of a bias have we come into this conversation, which I think is just very difficult. And I think in a way of a, hey, I don't know what I don't know. And so I don't know how to really be a psychologist. I think it's very scary when people say that they can do these things without really having the education of doing them, and then a little bit of a background of being successful in diagnosing people. But real quick, Corey, and I know you got something to say here, is I do think it might be time, my opinion, for LeClerc to be put on the injured list and start throwing bullpens and see if we can get him back on track, because the Rangers right now do need him this year. They don't have a backup plan. The backup plan is maybe Ian Kennedy, and right now he has a 7.27 ERA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just seeing Bochy's quote is the part that really gets me, where he says, I think you have to be a little bit concerned. You pull for the kid so hard, but... And that's the part where he said, but he had trouble finding the strike zone. This is a business as well. Yeah. If you're not doing your job, we have to find ways for the people that can do the job. I may like you as a kid. I may like you, like you're nice. I like having you around the clubhouse. You're good. But nobody's going to like you if you're not throwing strikes. Yeah. That's the first thing you have to, that's the reason you're here. And so it sounds, to me, what you just said, it sounds like Bochy is at that point where, look, you have to be concerned, and you like him, but...
And that's where I think, I don't know. I have no clue. I do not have any inside information on this at all, except just how things have gone watching baseball, playing baseball, and analyzing baseball is it feels like they are to the point with Jose LeClerc that they are, I think, leaning on this off day of not sending him on the 10-game road trip to the West Coast and going, you know what, let's have him throw bullpens. Or maybe he goes on the trip, but he goes on the trip just working with Mike Maddox on bullpens, and then you send him to Frisco because it's just down the street, because he's not really going down to the minor leagues, and then you give him some appearances in Double-A and see how those go. And then the other thing too is I think that they are done with this. Even if they don't do that, and I know I'm out of time, is you don't put them in any more pressure situations. What Yandy Rodriguez pitched in yesterday was a 12-7 game. You literally give him, every time you're losing by 2 or more runs, or any time that you're up by, I would say, 5 or more runs, and there's still multiple innings to go, because I don't want to pitch him in the 8th or 9th inning at all, unless it's, I would say, an 8-run game.
Yeah.
So I think that's where you're at.